34 and got married to my wife Claire 2 years ago. She has a 6-year-old daughter, my stepdaughter, that she shares custody of with her ex-husband Adam. So Adam hasn't dated anyone since him and Claire got separated. Claire always talked about how this was a good thing because she believes that my stepdaughter is better off without a witch stepmom to boss her around and abuse her. Then Adam started seeing his now girlfriend about 8 months ago. Claire wasn't happy about it, and in fact, she was livid that Adam introduced my stepdaughter to his girlfriend so soon. Claire demanded meetings with Adam's girlfriend to test and see what kind of stepmom she'd be for my stepdaughter. I didn't give it much attention because of the drama and always having mother-in-law involved as well. However, very recently I found out that Claire installed several cameras in Adam's house while he and his girlfriend were away on a trip. Claire had a key to Adam's house because most of my stepdaughter's stuff is there. Keep in mind that I found out by looking at the chat with Claire and my mother-in-law, so she wasn't on it too. It bothered me because it's a total breach of privacy, but when I confronted Claire, she said that she did this because Adam's girlfriend was going to move in soon and she wanted to see how she treats my stepdaughter. I told her this was wrong, but she said it's all temporary until Adam's girlfriend is in the clear. I still wasn't convinced and suggested that she remove the cameras because of huge legal troubles once Adam finds out, but she lost her temper on me, saying I should stay out of it because I clearly don't care about my stepdaughter's well-being and happiness. But she had no evidence or even reason to believe that Adam's girlfriend may mistreat my stepdaughter. Claire just said that she wants to double check, and Adam does not need to know. However, I disagreed and said that I'd tell him if she wouldn't remove the cameras, which made her lose it on me. She tried to get my mother-in-law to shut me down to get me to stay in my lane, but I couldn't. Claire said that if I tell Adam, we're going to have a problem and urged me to mind my own business because I'm 26 and my husband is 31. I was planning on having a girls' night in at home, and he initially was like, no, not here, get a hotel or something. I said I couldn't afford a hotel, plus there was no need for one. He asked if he could join us if he's going to allow it, but I said no, this isn't how girls' night works. He eventually agreed to let me have it and even said he'd go out so my friends could be more comfortable. I invited the girls over and most of them had a lot of heavy venting to do. At some point things got a bit emotionally charged and there was crying, lots of it. After we brought in the food and drinks, when I went to turn on the TV, I spotted a small device tucked on the side. I took a look and found that it was actually a voice recording device. I was in disbelief. I knew my husband put it there to listen to our private conversations, which felt highly violating. I didn't hide it from the girls. I showed them the device, called my husband to get him to come home, and confronted him right there in front of the girls. The girls were shocked and my husband denied it after I flipped out and called him out. Then he said he was feeling curious to know about what we were talking about and wanted to make sure we weren't trash-talking him specifically. The event was cut short and the girls left. I kept lashing out at him for ruining the night and possibly my relationship and trust with my friends. I said not only did he violate my privacy, but my friends as well. Because they were talking about very personal stuff, he argued that it was no big deal, that I should have just let him join us if we had nothing to hide, and that this was on them for opening up about private matters to begin with. He went on to talk about how I humiliated him by calling him out in front of my friends. I told him they deserve to know who he really is after what he's done. We argued some more and then he went out again. We're still fighting till today and I feel like I made a mistake calling him out like that aside from how I felt about it. He claims that my friends will no longer respect him after that. Am I the asshole for calling my husband out in front of my friends for planning a recording device while we were having a girls' night in? Yesterday, I was supposed to spend the night at my friend's house with some of my classmates and we were playing Truth or Dare. There really is no reason for us to choose truth since we already know a lot about each other, so we mostly just went with dares. It was pretty fun and we had some weird challenges. I was sitting next to my friend's brother when it was my turn and a classmate challenged me to kiss him. His sister immediately told my friend to change the dare and so she did. To be clear, her brother didn't say anything when he heard about the dare and just laughed, so he definitely looked like he was okay with it, right? Well, wrong, because after I kissed him, he told me what the fuck am I doing and he looked like he was really grossed out by it. I was honestly a bit offended and asked him why he was so grossed out by me kissing him. I'm actually a pretty okay looking girl and even if I wasn't, there was no reason for him to act like this. He ended up leaving the game and my friend told me that what I did was wrong on so many levels and to get out of her house. My other classmates didn't say anything, so I think they were on my side, but they didn't want to participate in this argument. I'll ask them when they go back home. Anyway, I did end up leaving. Am I the asshole for kissing my friend's brother without his consent during a truth or dare? My boyfriend, 31, in the past had a binge drinking problem before we met. By the time we met, he had been sober for years but had cirrhosis on his liver that doesn't look to be getting any better and had some really bad lab results. He also had an embolism in his lungs, so had reduced lung function and diabetes. He went to a liver specialist who mentioned that my boyfriend might need a liver transplant in the future, and he came back pretty bummed out about that understandably. He then, not seriously, but kind of hopefully let me know that I should donate part of my liver to him if we matched. I told him no and I was kind of in shock that he would ask. We've only been dating for 8 months and while I like him, I'm not convinced he's the one yet. He has a lot of qualities that I like, but some of them drive me up the wall, including having poor personal hygiene and not looking after his diet and eating mostly fast food, which probably is what causes diabetes. He was surprised and then tried to cover it up by saying he didn't expect it and he was just joking. I felt like he was being serious but didn't want to seem that way, and I told him that I would only think about doing something so personal for a parent, sibling, or a spouse and only if we were on good terms. He then joked that he could just ask me to marry him to get my liver, and I told him that now he's mentioned it, it would make any marriage proposal seem disingenuous, so I wouldn't get matched to see if I was a candidate beforehand. He got serious and told me that the liver isn't a big transplant and I would still be able to keep part of my liver. I told him that it doesn't matter that the liver regenerates, I wouldn't even think about doing it just for a boyfriend. He got offended and said that he would do it for me if the situation was reversed, and I said that the problem is that the situation isn't reversed, so I'm not convinced he would do it just because he's spouting platitudes. He got really angry and stormed out of the house and he hasn't been back in hours. Am I the asshole for being overly honest with him and telling him that I wouldn't donate my liver to him? I was in Bloomingdale's today and happened to end up next to 2 teenage girls while shopping. One of the girls had picked out a pair of very expensive boots and they were fawning over them. The second girl must have looked at the price tag and asked the boots girl if she's really going to spend that much on boots. Girl with the boots said something along the lines of, "It's fine, I have my dad's credit card, I'm not paying." which instantly caught my attention because that's not her card. I've told my son multiple times he's never allowed to use my card, so I'm interested to see how this girl thinks she's going to get away with fraud, but I had to split up from the girls at this point because they had found something else. We ended up at the same register, me behind, and I see her total hit well over 4 digits. The girl is about to swipe her card when I decide that I can't let her get away with something like this, and someone has to parent this kid if no one else will. I tell the cashier that isn't her card but her father's, and I'm not sure if she has permission. The girl and friend turn to glare at me, giving me possibly the dirtiest look I've ever seen. I swear this girl was going to throw a tantrum right there. I don't think she was ever told no. The girl tells the cashier that her father gave her the card to shop with because it's the store's credit card and he gives him points. Now that I've pointed out that it wasn't hers, the cashier tells her that she can't use that card. The girl tries to show the ID to prove that they have the same last name. Yeah, that'll help. And I tell her that it's still fraud. The girl said it's not fraud because she has permission and tells me to mind my own business. I tell her that it is my business, that she's doing something illegal and she needs to pay with her own card or I'll call the cops. The girl is pissed now and people are glaring at me. She uses her own card and leaves crying. The cashier looks mad at me and I tell my husband when I get home, only for him to agree that I was in the wrong. Am I the asshole for telling the cashier that it wasn't the girl's credit card? I, 33 male, have recently purchased and run a high-end bar. I want the venue to maintain a certain standard and image and therefore require my staff to wear professional work attire as their uniform. As with professional attire for most fields, this includes female staff wearing makeup. This is the image of my bar that I want my guests to experience. I see no issues with this, and when I worked hospitality when I was in my early 20s, female staff were always required to wear makeup, no dramas. I clearly communicate the acceptable uniform to my staff through the style guide I provide every few months. Lisa, 22, has decided that because she studied a women's course at uni, she's now more woke than us and has made an issue over me requiring the female staff to wear makeup and not the guys. This is quite laughable to me because obviously guys don't wear makeup for a professional uniform. Lisa, on Friday night, refused to wear makeup to her shift, and I had to send her home on a busy Friday night. She said it isn't fair that I have such a strict emphasis on female uniform when the male uniform is a lot less effort, and that it's discriminatory. She also said that if I want the girls to spend an hour doing a full face of makeup, then I can pay the girls an extra hour and the products. I laughed in her face and told her that my uniform does not differ from professional attire in any industry, and it's standard for women to wear makeup in professional environments. Furthermore, I'm the owner and can choose the attire my staff wear for the bar's look that I want. She said her wearing makeup does not compromise her ability to bartend and actually looks less professional when she's sweating in the makeup. I told her there are bars in our city that literally have females serving in lingerie, or hostesses dolled up to tens, and you're having a whine about dressing professionally? Have you ever been to Vegas? Do you think those girls working hostess jobs in hospitality don't have to look a certain way for that role? I sent her home. I was going to fire her if she did a repeat of this on Saturday, but she got all the girls to wear no makeup, and now none of them will work until I change the rules. Am I the asshole for requiring female staff to wear makeup as part of the professional work attire? So I, 32, have been married to my husband, 34, for 6 years. Before we got married, he had me sign a prenup stating that our financials would always be separate and the only thing that we would share was an expense account to pay for our household-related fees. The reason for this was because he was making pretty good money and I was in graduate school, so my financial situation was pretty bad, but I signed nonetheless because I understood he wanted to protect himself. Anyway, fast forward to now, I've been out of school for 4 years and I make more than 3 times as much as he does. I've never asked him how much he makes and he's never asked me either. Anyway, 2 weeks ago I told him that I was thinking about buying a new car as the one I had was really old since I had it since my undergraduate days. He wasn't really interested and he just told me to get whatever I liked. So a week ago, I decided to make a plunge and get an Audi. I was pretty excited as I always wanted one. At the time, my husband was on a business trip and he got back yesterday. I showed him my car and he was really happy for me. However, later he asked me what my monthly payments were as the Audi was pretty new. At this point, I told him that I made the purchase in cash and that I had no monthly payments. He was taken back and asked with what money, and I answered that I made more than enough to be able to afford it. He didn't talk after that and I thought that was that. However, a few hours later, he came back to me and told me that he thinks we should void the prenup. This is where I might be the asshole because I laughed in his face. I asked him why I would agree to do that, and his answer was that we're married and should share our financials. So I told him we've been married for 6 years and yet we've never shared our financials, and I was fine with what we were doing. And his sudden change of heart was very suspicious. He called me a bunch of names and stormed out and didn't come home, and I guess he told his family about our fight. They called to berate me and say how he supported me while I was in school. He didn't, and now I'm wondering if I was an asshole. So, am I the asshole for laughing in my husband's face? Part 2, I laughed in my husband's face when he asked to void the prenup. I called into work and took a week off. I'm an independent contractor, so I didn't sign any new contracts. I sat my husband down and suggested that we should see a therapist. He refused. I asked him why he wanted to avoid the prenup. He said because he wanted to combine finances. So I asked to see his bank accounts, and he had been misusing his money and was virtually broke. He basically had less than half of what I spent on my Audi. He had also made a series of bad investments and had apparently sold his property that he owned in NE. But most of his money went to his gambling habit. I knew he gambled, but not at the rate that I saw. I asked where we went from here if he didn't want to go to marriage counseling. He replied that since I made more, he should quit his job and follow his dreams. He wants to be a professional gambler? Is that a thing? I don't know whose money he thinks he's going to use to finance that. I asked him who would support him while he was following his dreams. Since he hadn't supported me, I would also not be supportive. My parents helped me out with the bills while I was in grad school. He flipped out and said that I was lucky to have him and that he should have dumped me for a younger woman. I replied that I should have dumped him for a younger man. I know it was childish, but I couldn't help it. He also said that it was unnatural for me to be making more than he was and that we should have at least 3 kids by now. I confessed that I also lost my shit and told him that the only younger women who would date him were the drunk or desperate ones because he had crazy written all over him. After the whole fiasco, I packed my bags, went to some friend's house, got the number for a good divorce attorney from a friend, and I will meet with him this week and hopefully start the process. I texted my soon-to-be ex that I was filing. His response? He was never going to sign the divorce papers and I was stuck with him whether I liked it or not. Honestly, everything happened so fast that I'm still in shock. I don't even know if I overreacted by talking about divorce so fast. So there's the update. I'm not sure what comes next, but thanks for everything.